Welcome to the Perspective Podcast. Josue here. As you guys probably already know, I'm from the Democratic Republic of Congo. I attended the Oral Roberts University. I preach at times, but typically we're not here to talk about that. To my left, we have Mr. Chase Brown. He was born in Texas. He attended the University of North Texas. He's an aspiring philanthropic creative.
Yeah.
Did I miss something?
Nope.
Okay, you got your mic, so I was a little nervous.
Yeah, I'm just hyping you up.
Okay, just making sure I didn't miss anything. And what day is it today? Is it the 31st?
It's the 31st.
Man, January went by really fast.
Say that again.
It is January 31st, 2022, and he still loves very, very long walks on the beach. Why that is, we have no idea. It's too cold outside, but today I feel like we'll be able to answer that question for you guys. So, Chase, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
It was actually good today.
It did feel good
outside.
today. I was surprised.
Whenever I went outside to get the mail, I was like, I wish I would have been outside here.
I heard there's supposed to be snow coming up.
That's in a few days.
Okay.
So we got some time. I
The
think
snow apocalypse.
hopefully not a repeat of last year.
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
So hey, at least we had power here last year.
We did.
We were able to have Josiah's family come over.
We did.
Just be good citizens. Good, what do they call it? Good Samaritans.
Samaritans, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was good. And so, so I've been good. Yeah, winter has been good so far.
Yeah.
The new year's been good so far. And yeah, man, just excited for everything coming up.
Yeah.
But yeah, how have you been, bro?
Man, I've been good too. I think I'm trying to figure out Texas. I've been here for so long and I still can't figure it out, especially the temperature. It's kind of like a mystery. It's like one moment the next moment you're not really sure what's going on.
I've been here for 28 years and I still don't know.
Yeah, so maybe I'll never figure it out. But
there is this thing called the weather app on your phone, though.
I don't use that a lot.
You could check.
I really don't. I probably need to. I'll probably do like once a week so I get like a general overview and then I just guess.
But then you forget 2 days later.
That's true.
It's okay. That's that could be a February resolution.
True. I'm going to starting my New Year's resolutions on the Chinese New Year, and I want you guys to follow me in on that. What do you think about that?
Solid. You're just honoring the Chinese that we met over in Shanghai.
I am. I feel like, I feel part of the people, the community. So I just want to be honoring, and so I'm adopting new things. So, yeah.
Yeah, bro. How what is it called? Inclusive of you.
I try to be an inclusive guy. What's that word? A recluse? What's the word? What does that mean?
I mean, recluse means you're kind of like hidden and like no one really knows about you.
Okay, never mind. So for today, today's episode, we're gonna go over a generation. That's 100 years, right?
Well, I mean,
decades, 10 years.
Decades, 10 years. A century is 100 years.
Century, I'm tripping. We'll edit that part out. So we're going to go over a century, and what I mean by that is we're going to go over our last 100 episode. Who would have thought would have been here? I think sitting at, what's that place called?
Where we met?
Torchies. We're talking about this thing called consistency, and somehow we made it to 100 episodes. I don't know how we got here, but we got here, and so we wanted to go over the last 2 seasons. We sports athletes, commentators. Yeah, the last 2 years, and just to share some clips, some of our favorite moments. Not that other moments weren't able to make it, but we didn't want to be here for 5 hours. So, we're able to pick some moments for you guys, and we hope that those of you that have been with us for a long time are able to, remember those moments.
Reminisce
and maybe if you're
bit.
new, reminisce. And maybe if you're new, you're able to go back and just listen to those episodes, have a good time with that. So, how you feeling about it?
Bro, it's going to be a ton of fun.
Yeah.
It's funny. It took us a little while to narrow this list down.
It did.
Because we wanted to include as much as we could. Because there's been a lot of amazing conversations, but we got a pretty solid list. So it's gonna be fun.
It is, and you said it was funny. I think probably one of the more memorable moments that we had on the podcast. I was completely shocked. I'm still a little bit shocked right now, recovering from it. It was when we were in Atlanta, and Mr. Foggieraw. He provided one of the best content, I feel like, that I heard on the podcast in terms of just humor and everything else. And so, that's what we're kind of hoping that scene clip moment, we're hoping to share with you guys.
Yeah. So here it is.
Yeah. But so speaking of that, diaspora, I like that word. It's an interesting word. So there are a lot of talks about various things in regards to African countries and culture and all that stuff. And one of those big, like, raging questions that always comes up, I feel like has caused a lot of trauma. It's caused a lot of anguish and this belief and doubt. And
Slavery was not a choice.
Huh?
It's not a choice.
Oh,
Slavery
was
not a choice.
from brother Kanye, right? No. I'm talking about jollof rice. So from the people that we've had on that are from those places.
I mean, all over the place.
All over the place.
Nigeria. Ghana, Zimbabwe.
So from what we've heard, we have 3 right now. We have Senegal, Nigerian, and then y'all. So the question is always, out of all these, wonderful places, who makes the best jollof rice?
Okay, let me answer this question not being biased.
Good, because I got 2 more of these kinds of questions. So go ahead,
There we go. Good to know we have an unbiased judge here.
Yes, I will try to be unbiased. So the reality is, this is the reality of the situation. Nigerian jollof is not the best. Period.
Wow.
Period. I'm not going to go to Senegal yet. Just Nigerian, they don't make...
If you got other countries added in, because those are the only 3 we've heard of.
Yes,
so,
yes. They're like, the way they make the jollof rice, there's no way... Like, you know how, like, you might not know, but, like, Max from First Take?
Yeah.
He always be like, oh, well, if the fate of the universe, who would you want to shoot this?
$100.
If the fate of the universe, you wouldn't send Nigerian jollof to be the right?
That's crazy.
That the aliens try. You wouldn't.
That's crazy.
You wouldn't. You'd be like,
this is going online, right?
Oh, let it go. Let it go. They know.
Man, that's crazy.
They know.
The fate of the universe, so like you're not saying Nigerian rice. That's a quote.
Oh my gosh.
Now, I would say this though. I've had good Nigerian jollof. So it really always does depend on who makes it, but on a consistent basis, I'm still gonna have to say Ghanaian jollof. But I don't know if I try Senegal, but there's a couple other places. I think Liberia, they had some good.
I didn't even know Liberia made any.
Yeah, they had some good. There's some other places, but obviously, I would say it honestly really depends on who makes it.
For sure.
Like a lot, yeah.
At the end of the day, right?
But Nigeria is never.
That's not it. That's not the answer.
That's never the answer, exactly.
The fate of the universe.
Fate of the universe.
And we got to send out our best jollof.
Yes.
Nigerian is not who we're sending out.
And I'll say to encourage you, that's been the common trend.
Yeah.
Really, right?
Nigeria's been losing. Surprisingly,
Nigeria's
been losing.
So we think it's only fitting to go from one of the funniest moments on the podcast to potentially one of the other funniest moments on the podcast, provided by our boy Chaz Smith out in LA. And here it is.
Like speaking a British accent, something like that, bro. Do a little drill rap.
Drill. Yeah, go ahead. Do a little stuff.
I need a beat though.
Oh, a beat?
This is you, Josue.
You want to go on YouTube and find the beat?
Yeah, something like a royalty-free drill.
Keep talking while I find the beat. Let me go in here.
So what?
I can't freestyle either, though. That's the thing.
You can freestyle.
I could try, but I'd rather do that than like a fake Portuguese accent that I'm not even sure. You can do the beat. You could try something. You're not gonna. You gonna pull something up? I thought you gonna pull something
You're
up.
the resident musician.
Oh, yeah, I am a musician. Let me find the beat.
Like royalty-free drill beat. Just
okay. Is that
There we
on
go.
YouTube?
yeah. Just like search royalty-free drill beat.
Royalty.
English is the first language, remember?
I think it's spelled CHAZ, something like that.
Royalty free beats. You said? Trap beats.
Drill beats.
Drill beats. Lord.
Drill.
You got it.
Oh, thank you, Alex. Okay. I don't know what is gonna come out my mouth. I have no idea.
I'm gonna hype you up. So
big man team. Yeah. Oh, that's drill.
Yeah, you got it.
All right.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep the accent while I'm rapping, but look,
big man.
We just finished the podcast. We gotta get real fast. I don't know, bro.
You was good at the beginning.
I had it in like 2 seconds. I had it in like 2 seconds.
After that, it was done. Yeah. Get it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something that they say is big man thing. I'm about to go sleeping. It's getting a little late. I'm going to the bed. And I'm gonna have dreams. No nightmares. I don't care. Whatever.
Yo, you was the first 2 seconds you got it, but then
no, I got like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Call me two-time Timmy or something, because I got like two units of time worth of like seconds of
2-time Timmy. Okay.
Something like that, bro.
Cool, man.
That's solid.
Big up.
That was wonderful. You know, I thought this moment was like really unique because hearing how somebody got their name, how creatives come to a place where it's like you brainstorm, and then you get a name that just sticks. So I feel like the brothers at Common Rags were really just able to, communicate that very well. And so for me personally, I know for us, it was such a unique moment. And so we wanted to include that in the clip. So here's this clip of how Common Rags got their name.
So then from there, where did the name Common Rags come from? Like what even happened with that?
We actually get that question a lot, and it's kind of hard to answer because it was like one of those things that you just say something and that's what it is, And so like, I think it was so like, that's what, going back to it, just like, it was all so perfect. So like God, we thought we were doing something like, let's start something, but there was a purpose behind all of it. Now we are seeing it. And so then I think we were having coffee before work. We were going to work and we were having coffee. We were talking about starting something and we were really determined. Yeah. That's for sure. We didn't know what it looked like, what it was. We knew it had to do with vintage clothing and online Instagram driven shop. And that's all we knew. And so we sat down, we were just looking through stuff. And I go into work. I think it was on a Sunday evening. We were going into work. Who works Sundays? I don't know. But we were going into work and I was working and I'm on my phone just like, I don't know what I was doing. And then I created a Instagram account to play around with like usernames. And so I don't know why I had this like word in my mind and it was like common. Like it was just, that's all I knew. So I was like literally trying like common, what would be a good name for us for what we're doing. And then just rags kind of hit. And I was like, wait, vintage clothing is old clothing. Anything vintage is like 20 years or older. So they're like shirts that a lot of people can see right now as like, ew, that has like some paint on it, has some wear, has some holes on it. And they're like, just like not very appreciated by a lot of people. So they're considered old pieces of clothing or old pieces of a piece of cloth, and so rags. And I was like, wait, like it kind of makes sense. It kind of fits. Like we're going to be selling vintage clothing. That's our DNA. Common rags, it's gonna become common. And it was just like making sense in my head. It was all like connecting. And then I go onto like the Instagram account and I put common rags and it was like available. And I was like freaking out because I don't like anything that has like, or at least for a brand, I wouldn't like anything that has like an underscore or like a period or I don't know, just like
I hear you on that.
I think of like Supreme New York or like, I look up to those brands, Kith, like it's just that. And so for me, I was like, dude, this is so sick. Like, I don't even know what it's going to be like. I don't know what but I'm keeping this user. And then that same night we went back home and this is like not knowing what we're going to do. And we bought the domain online. Yeah. And I was like, all right, well, we have the Instagram, we have the domain. Now, like, what do we do kind of deal? But it was just like all within that same day. Like it was very like precise, God leading us to do this, us actually putting our like, okay, we're going to put our mind into this. Like we're going to go all in. And that same day, like we had the name, the Instagram and the domain, like all in like one evening, one night, which is crazy.
I mean, that's really crazy to think about because I know trying to come up with a name for a brand, even coming up with a name for like an Instagram or social media account can be challenging, but if it's something that sticks, it just sticks and everybody, resonates.
Yeah, and I wasn't really like, I don't think we were feeling it very much. Like, I was like, well, I think we even tried to like come up, continue, but it kind of grew on us like, man, this is it. Like, this is really it. And even like the logo as well, like was super, we were trying to find the logo, which was the other thing. Yeah. And we got the logo and it didn't, I was like, I'm not a big fan of it. And it just like it resonates. Like everything like is like the name, the logo. It just sticks out, resonates, and feels right. Feels in place.
Yeah, and there's like depth to it. There's symbolic depth to it because it was the same thing with perspectives, to where there's a essentially like a class that's offered by another charity called Frontiers USA. That class is called Perspectives, and they own the domain perspectives.org. And so whenever we were creating the charity, the Lord gave me the name like Perspectives Worldwide, and I was kind of like, God, like I don't know about this, man. Like they could confuse us with this or this, but like he just affirmed it over and over again. And there's so many layers of depth to it that applies to kind of the mission for us of wanting to change, individual by individual perspective. And then from there, that changes, on average, the culture and the worldview and everything like that, more towards like a biblical worldview, honoring the Father and everything like that. So I think it's so cool to see that y'all did the same thing with that and going along with that. So
I've tried to like come up with other stuff like, and it's not as easy as it was that, it's like how I'm trying to like think and like remember what did I do that day that made me like that everything was just so easy and smooth. But I mean, it's just, God,
Yeah, really, I mean, I even had that with shameless plug. I mean, my own Instagram, right? Like whenever I was trying to come up with my name for my Instagram. So my Instagram name is Butterman, right? Butterman. And so people just call me Butter. Like that just became a thing. And so I was literally sitting in the kitchen. It's a shameless plug. I gotta do it. I was sitting in the kitchen, so this way no one else asks me what it is. I'm sitting in the kitchen and I just deleted my other Instagram like 6 months ago. And so I'm trying to come up with something new. And I'm sitting in the kitchen, I'm like, nothing's sticking, nothing's working. And I was like, ooh, I can't believe it's not butter, because for some reason I saw it outside. I saw the can that butter came in, and I was like, nah, that's too long. And so I was like, ooh, what about Butterman? So that was just this revelation that came to me, and I was like, okay, cool. And so I just put that and I made it as a name, but I wasn't thinking anything of it. Yeah. But it took on this personality of its own. Not that I'm like not a person, but it just became a name that people kind of recognize. And
that's awesome.
Not that it's the same thing as you guys, but
no, it kind of is. That's a really.
It's really nice. I wish it was a better story that Revelation and Angel came down or something like that.
My user just my name.
I really thought this moment for me was really interesting, coming from the same culture in a sense, Ethiopian, Congolese, and I know growing up how a lot of it has to do with like, it seems like our parents, they want you to be doctors and lawyers and engineer and everything like that. And asking Hanna about, she's doing photography, asking her, how'd your parents feel about this? Yvonne and I asking her about that. And her response, I thought was very interesting, and how much her dad really supported, to the point where he even purchased her first camera.
The equipment and all of that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's just a big testament for like encouragement and just how much parents' encouragement can mean to a kid.
Yeah.
And so, this is one of my favorite moments too.
Yeah. So it showed a lot of support for all the parents out there. So here's this moment from our LA trip conversation with Hanna.
English is your second language.
English is my second language. So give me, please give me time to
right.
figure this
I think
thing
that's
out.
right.
You feel me?
Yeah.
Okay. So 2 questions. I hope I don't forget the second one. The first one is then, so there's that thought, it seems like from a lot of, not even just, African parents, just Africans, we'll stick to that. But there's almost, you can set an expectation, success being a doctor, being a lawyer, things of that nature. Engineer, things of that nature. Do we think those are good expectations? Or, because there's not always that freedom for me to be an artist, for me to be a musician, or whatever that situation might be. Does that make sense? Right? Because there's always like, okay, be these top 5 things, but these other avenues, there's not always that liberty for us to pursue.
Yeah. So I think we started talking about this a little bit even yesterday. It's interesting because I think it comes from, this idea that, when I think of previous generations of Africans that have emigrated to the United States, financial security is like a big motivator, right? So regardless of what they did, how they did it, they found a way to be here in America, right? But financial stability and security is something that I think when they look at their kids, they go, man, like, in what position can I put my kid so that they don't have to deal with maybe some of these struggles, so that they don't have to necessarily work as hard or as long? Because, you know, the reality for immigrant parents coming to the United States in many cases is doing whatever they can do to make sure that we as their children are provided for. So I think that's where it comes from. Now, the other side of it is not everyone's supposed to be a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there are many doctors, lawyers, engineers that had parents that pushed them to do it, that were created to do that. You know what I mean? But I also think there are others that are really doing it just so that they can be financially secure and financially stable. And even, you know, what success looks like in our culture, a lot of times is tied to, like, has like a monetary value. I don't know if maybe it's just us, but there's almost like you're successful if you're a millionaire.
Right.
You know, there's almost like this, like, oh, you're not a million. Okay, like keep working, or you know what I mean, like that. And so I think that's where the two come, because, you know, when you think of the professions that we've been talking about, they're generally going to be professions where you're not really struggling. Like the schooling may be a little bit difficult, it may be a little bit long, but, you know, you come out, you know, making six figures in most of these fields and aren't necessarily worried about, you know, payments for this or payments for that. It's kind of just rolling in. So I think that's where the motivation comes, and that's where the expectation comes. But, you know, being one, for example, that didn't really follow a traditional path, I also see the other side of, man, like, it's not for everybody. Right. So one of the things that I appreciated a lot of things about the way my parents raised me, but there are things that as we talk about having kids, that I'm like, oh, like, there must be freedom for, like, kids to really discover, like, what their natural gifts, talents, and abilities are, and how that plays out. And it may not be, that's the hard part, right? Because it may not be the most lucrative thing, right? But here's what I believe. I think this is just like a random thought, but I think if whatever your gifts are, whatever your gift is, I think if you focus on using it to serve as many people as you possibly can, it's very hard for you not to feel fulfilled. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think fulfillment comes from discovering what it is that God has placed inside of you, but then on the other side, using it to serve your generation.
Right.
And I think, like, I can speak for myself and say I am definitely not doing what my dad thought I would be doing at this point in time, because he had these, like, grandiose plans, ideas, and dreams that I appreciate, but I can say that what I'm doing is better than what I could have even imagined. So anyways, that's my 10 cents.
Yeah, I also wanted to say that I think one of the things that I appreciate about the way my parents raised me in terms of just, like, what success looks like, I just always remember, like, the one thing that I hang on to that my dad always says is, like, you can do anything you want to do. You just have to be, you know, the best at it and do whatever makes you happy. And I feel like, looking around me, like, that wasn't a common notion that people actually, like, really grew up with in their household. But that's, like, one of the things that I'm so grateful to have grown up with that mindset, and that my dad, like, he always believed in me and my sisters that we can really, you know, do anything that makes us happy, and not only do it, but, like, also be the best at it.
Right.
And my mom the same way too. Like, they're both super supportive. So I think with that, I felt like I was never really constrained to, you know, go the typical routes of being a doctor or being a lawyer or being really, and if in fact, I think because my dad is a doctor, I feel like he never really pushed us to be a doctor like him, because he always would say like the road is just incredibly hard. Like if you don't need to do it, don't do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There was even a point where I thought I wanted to be a doctor because of certain things. And then I took some classes, realized it wasn't for me. And even my dad, I just remember him, you know, we were talking about my grades and stuff. And he's like, you know, Hanna, like no one's forcing you to do this. Like you don't have to do that, you know? And he would also like, he was very, very like noticeable of like the arts within me. Cause I've been painting and drawing for like a really long time. I took art lessons for like 7 years. And that's something that they've put in for me for like 7 years. And then after that, like he noticed that I really started to love photography, and he was the one that invested in buying a camera for me.
Wow.
You know? And sometimes like randomly he would say like, have you ever thought about like working at Cosmopolitan or something like that, or just like any of like these beauty places or anything like that? And I think because my dad, I don't know why he's the one to have thought like this, but I feel so incredibly blessed that he's my dad. You know what I'm saying? Because
that's a blessing.
It really
is. Yeah.
You know, because he is just constantly, yes, he's trying to push me to become better, but he's pushing me to become better in whatever makes me happy. Like he's really trying, he was always trying to find like what's like that thing that is gonna like set me off. You know what I'm saying? And so I just wanted to say, like I'm just shout out to dad and mom.
Shout out to your dad and mom.
Shout out.
That's wonderful. You know, this moment for me was, it was kind of crazy because I'm down here in Brazil recording a podcast like everything is just normal. And Sam is going through and sharing all his stories. And if you guys have heard his podcast, is very animated guy, a lot of energy. And then he shared this story of how he prayed for those kids in his classroom as a substitute teacher. Typically something you're not supposed to do, but Sam is Sam, and he just does certain things. And so that was one of those memorable moments for me. And I was like, man, we got to make sure to include this one. Unfortunately, we didn't get to record it, but hope you guys are able to enjoy the audio anyways. So, yeah. So what does that look like, I guess, for, let's say I'm a teacher, let's say I'm a businessman, and not just dunamis, but I go somewhere like that and I get equipped and I come back to everyday life. Do I just kind of go back to who I was prior to me going? Do I come back with this love and I become this Jesus guy? What does that look like for
I'm glad you asked the first one about the teacher, and then I'll go to the businessman. So I actually had the opportunity of being a substitute teacher for 1.5 years.
Oh.
And God bless those kids.
For sure.
But I remember going in, I was like, God, I don't want to go to work just as a regular substitute teacher. Like I'm not, like, because none of us
Was this in the
called.
States or over here?
This is in the States.
Okay.
And before I moved to Brazil. And so I'm there and I'm like, God, I'm not, like, I got to cry for these students before I even go. I was like, I can't walk into that room if I haven't shedded tears. And so I remember a couple days before I even went for the first time, I was like, man, I'm about to pray. I start praying. The Lord shows up. I began to shed tears and begin to speak and just pray and prophesy that signs, miracles, and wonders were going to show up in the classroom. And I know that in the state of Texas or in the United States that technically, legally, I can't talk about Jesus. Yeah. But I'm like, if they ask the question, I'm going to answer. So I remember, and I'll just...
stories are great. I love stories.
So I remember I was in a middle school there in Texas. I can say the name. Yeah.
We don't want to get them shut down.
But I believe there's 7th or 8th graders. And I remember I was in there and I prayed. I said, God, this is your room. Come and show up with your kingdom. Like, I want to see signs, miracles, and wonders. And I just remember sitting down. I was like, Lord, fill me with your love for these kids. These kids came in. They were bad. They were talking back. Yeah. But I got them straight. I'm like, hey, sit down, do your work. Yeah. And they're doing their work. And then all of a sudden, someone's like, Mister, what do you do? What is you? And I'm like, I'm a substitute teacher, but I'm also a missionary. What's a missionary? I'm like, oh, they're asking the right questions. God's about to show up.
It's a setup.
I said, a missionary is a person that goes to another nation that talks about what they believe in. And then they're like, what do you believe in? I was like, I believe in Jesus. I believe in God. I believe in the Holy Spirit. I believe in his love. I believe in his power. They're like, what do you mean his power? Like, I was like, God heals people. He does this and that. And then all of a sudden this girl's like, I don't believe in that. I'm an atheist.
Wow.
Like all rude, all loud, interrupting me. And I looked at her and I said, it's okay, because before the end of the classroom, you're going to believe. And she looked at me, and it looked like she wanted to cuss me out. And she didn't, though.
It's a bold statement.
Yeah, it's a bold statement. And then I sat down. I'm like, all right, Lord, now you got to do something. I'm like, I just said that. I'm like, all right, now you got to show up.
Yeah.
So I remember sitting down. I was like, let me let these kids do their work first.
Let me read a Bible verse real quick.
The Holy Spirit just invades this place.
Yeah.
And so I sit down. The Lord gave me a word of knowledge. He said, somebody's left ankle. I said, okay, cool. So I stand up. I said, hey, guys, really quick.
You're a substitute teacher.
I'm a substitute teacher. Yeah. This is not church, guys. This is not an outreach.
Wait, hold on. So this is God doing something outside the church?
Outside of the church. In the classroom.
In the classroom.
In the classroom.
Was there music in the background?
No music in the background.
Hillsong wasn't playing in the background?
We didn't even have an intercession team.
Wow.
Didn't have catchers.
Huh. Okay.
And so I remember going up to the front. I was like, I had to explain because these are people who are in church. I said, hey guys, I know this may sound weird, but God just spoke to me. He said, somebody in here's left ankle is hurting or it's messed up or it's sprained or something going on with your left ankle. Does that make sense for anybody in here? Like, is anybody's left ankle jacked up? No one raised their hand. Everyone was like all quiet and silent. Then I I began to look at this one girl, and this girl like started kind of like trembling. And like she like raised her hand and she like was kind of like scared. She was like, me?
Yeah.
I said, okay, which one? She was like, yeah, my left ankle. I was like, okay, can I pray for you? I want to pray for you, and God is gonna touch your ankle and He's gonna heal your ankles, and there's not gonna be any more pain.
Wow.
She said, okay, and everyone's like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
And so I went up to her. I was like, can I touch your ankle really quick, like just to say a quick prayer? She said, okay. And I just touched her ankle. I said, in the name of Jesus, be healed. Simple. I didn't sit there for 10 minutes. I didn't say, please, Jesus. I'm not begging.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting here trying to beg Jesus. I already know it's already done. I just need to agree with it. So I said, in Jesus' name, we declare healing over her ankle. I go back to the front. I said, hey, and most people stop there,
Yeah.
Stop there like, all right, that's it. I'm leaving. Like, no. How do you feel? She was afraid. I was like, try it out. And she didn't want to get up. She was like, no. But everybody's in the classroom like, come on, let's go.
Kids are crazy.
Just imagine the scene.
Yeah.
Everyone's jumping up and down. Come on, get up.
Yeah.
We want to see what happens.
Yeah.
She gets up and she slowly puts her left ankle down. And she begins to weep in the middle of class in the classroom. And then it started looking like a church service. Then she starts walking up and down the aisle trying to check her ankle. And she said the pain is gone. It doesn't hurt anymore. And she was just crying. Everybody's freaking out.
Wow.
You know, in church we say hallelujah, amen. I was in some F-bombs, some what the H, what the F.
Yeah.
In the middle classroom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like that's we need to hear that more. Why don't we hear that more? Because we don't walk in the love and the power of God everywhere we go. And at the end of that class, I didn't mention that girl wasn't the same girl that said, I don't believe in God, who was the atheist. It was a different girl. Then I sit down. I don't explain what happened yet because I'm trying to let them do their homework.
Yeah.
I'm trying to let them do their work.
Yeah.
I sit down. Everyone's like going crazy. I'm like, all right, guys, do your work. I'll explain later. Sit down. Then that girl who's an atheist, she comes up to me. She's like, what the heck did you just do?
Yeah.
She said, are you a witch? I said, no.
Yeah.
What was that? I said, God knew that you didn't believe in him.
Wow.
So he wanted to show you that he's real. And he touched and healed that other girl's ankle to show you that he's real and that he loves you and that he wants to have a relationship with you. And she just went and sat down and slammed her stuff on the desk and was just like pissed off.
Wow. Very
end of the class to end this testimony. I get up. I have like 3 minutes. The bell's about to ring. So I had 3 minutes to explain the whole gospel. I'm like, guys, so word of knowledge. And so I'm explaining what a word of knowledge is. I'm saying Jesus loves you. He died on the cross for your sins. He rose again. And God sent his only son. And he is inviting you. And so I asked, does anybody in here, that same power and love of God that she experienced, this girl experienced today, does anybody else want to experience that every single day of their lives? Raise your hand. 95% of the classroom, almost 30 students raised their hand in that moment, and almost everyone accepted Jesus.
Wow.
I don't remember if the atheist girl rose her hand.
Yeah.
She might not have, but she definitely met the Lord that day.
Yeah.
She had an encounter with Jesus, and about 30 students were saved in that one classroom.
Wow.
And so that's what we believe in. Like, we believe that wherever you're at, wherever you go, you can make a difference and bring the kingdom of God.
I mean, but that's what the Bible believes. It's not just what you guys believe. I guess that's just walking out what the word says. I love in in the word, it says it's God who causes us both to will and to do according to his good pleasure.
Exactly.
Right? So you being there, them being there, like the Lord set everything up, he put on your heart to do, and you actually did those things. So that's awesome. That's such an encouraging testimony.
So going from one just audio clip to another, had to bring in this conversation from season 1.
Man, in that one office.
In year 1,
Yeah.
in that office, shout out Capital Asset Resources.
Yeah.
With our boy, Montell Fish, and the great conversation we had with him
Yeah.
about how travel's been able to impact him and creative influences and everything along those lines. But yeah, man, and it's crazy to think that was close to 2 years ago.
Time's flying. I guess that's what happens when you're, 80 episodes after that?
Just about.
Yeah.
If not more.
Yeah, so.
But yeah, so it's good. So here's one of our favorite moments from our conversation with the boy Montel.
I'm always just like, I want to soak in as much. And I think that's just how I am. Like, I just like being able to be relatable to as many people as possible. So always just soaking stuff in.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we could see that even just from your last, couple projects. As we go from, your most recent one, Bedroom Lo-Fi. Which is just pure lo-fi.
Legit.
A little bit of vocals in there and things like that. To where before that you have Nights and Days, which is a lot of soulful R&B.
I didn't get to hear that one.
Dude, I think I played that for you.
Did you?
I think so. And then before that, Bedroom Gospel, all of that. I think, and actually think about it, I think it could be unique in that the way that you've been able to progress in music style, topics that you're worshiping about, things like that, are I would say maybe representative of growth in your faith in terms of having different seasons, and that you're willing to not stay in one season for too long. And so for in music, you're not, you don't feel like you have to stay in one style for too long.
Yeah, for sure.
You feel that freedom in the spirit to be able to just transition to whatever the Lord shifts your interest to at that time. And that's so good because I think not a lot of artists feel that way.
No, yeah. So true. I mean, honestly, there's this thing just even in pastors, you're only as good as your last message. And I was struggling with that because I released a project after Bedroom Gospel. So Bedroom Gospel is my most known one, but I released one and it's called It's Beautiful. Yeah. But the name why I named it It's Beautiful is because I was struggling so much with putting it out. I was like, this sucks. This is not as good as my last project. People aren't going to be as touched as much. I don't even feel like my faith is as strong as it was in that project. I just felt so much just the devil just speaking so much lies. Yeah. So I had to name it something that even when people say the project, they just say the name. They're saying It's Beautiful. And it's just speaking a blessing over it.
Encouragement. Yeah.
But it's real, man. I mean, it's every project is kind of a reflection of just where my relationship with God is, especially with the transition from Bedroom Gospel to It's Beautiful, and then Nights and Days, where I was just I was still growing in faith, but that's when, I was touring more, and a bunch of stuff happened. I was just getting into kind of relationship stuff, and just I've been talking just more open about being okay with just being single, for the season that you're in. But I was definitely went through a season where I was just trying to find, trying to rush the Lord and stuff like that and not really wait on his timing. And I wrote songs All I Need and then Moving Fast.
Which we talked about last night. My favorite.
Legit. But it's it's real, man. It's your walk with the Lord is, I think, it's a beautiful thing. And I don't think we have to show the end always, we're always and then just talk about it in the moment. I think there's beauty in showing you are actually going through it as we speak. As we speak, you are battling with the Lord right now. I think there's beauty in that.
And just some of the lessons that the Lord was able to provide on tour.
Yeah, man. I mean, definitely a thing would just be moving fast, just getting caught up in. You can get so caught up in ministry and you can get caught up in so many things. And Jesus did a lot of stuff, but he was always hearing the Father. And also just, I learned so much from the week of prayer at my church. But there was one of my deacons said, he was how many things how many times did I ignore, you know, people because I'm doing so-called God's work? Like, I could be out on tour, like, yeah, you know, I'm leading worship tonight, I'm doing all these things, but like, there's someone at the gas station that needs to hear about my Jesus. Like, so that was the thing that God was definitely trying to teach me. Like, learn how to like break away from what you think, you know, your patterns are, and just like hear me in the moment. So there'd be a lot of times, and a lot of it was just on stage and everything like that. But I would still have moments where, you know, you just find yourself talking to people anywhere, like about Jesus, but just trying to stay in the moment with God, like not getting caught up in routines and everything like that. So definitely, moving fast. Like that song, it meant a lot, because I was like, I know that I know it's something that I wanted to prevent myself from doing, like getting so busy, and then ultimately losing God in it. And that's why I did like rest after that tour. I even went to New York, and a bunch of my friends were like, bro, you could hop on stage with us. It was like they were like having a worship night, and I was like, bro, just hop on stage. And I was like, nah, man, like I gotta chill out. And New York is like my favorite city ever. So, but it's real, man. It's like, resting and just moving around and staying in the moment.
So we think it's only fitting to go from the clip with Montel to going to his manager, PB, Mr. Patrick Bradley. And one of the things that's had the most impact on me in that conversation was whenever he was talking about social media and just use with our phones and not being attached to it and everything along those lines. So here's that.
Makes it nice.
It makes it real nice.
Yeah.
So.
No, I hear you on that.
Yeah. And so then how do you kind of make that, protect that time with your wife in terms of date nights and intimate time with her, time with your kids, all of that, whenever entrepreneurship, especially nowadays, it seems like it's a 24/7 job.
It is 24/7.
Like you have Lord's Child, which is a brand.
Yeah.
Obviously you have social media for that.
Yeah.
A lot of social media influencers say it's a 24/7 job, always got to be posting stuff like that. And so it seems like it could be really easy to get carried away from that. And I mean, I can even say that as, you know, as us who are running, you know, Perspectives Worldwide, the charity, you know, a lot of work goes into that. And so I've seen myself get carried away where there's times where I don't think I have time for family or friends or whatever. So how do you protect that and be intentional?
So with it, it's like with being intentional, like the key, you know, it's like you have to want it. Okay. When we want something, we're going to do it. If I want to eat something, I'm going to go eat it. You know, when we don't want something or it's not a major thing on the list, it doesn't happen. So for me, like with my wife this year, it was like, hey, you know, things are slowing down, COVID, different things like that. I was like, you know, we kind of did a lot of the legwork of getting certain things set up, like with Lord Shaw, with Montel. So it's kind of like certain things are just going. So I was like, this year, you know, like really, I want to be us to be intentional with each other, with time and different things. So like, even for me, like what's big now is like, you know, like we're doing this podcast. I left my phone in the living room. We're just like, I'm leaving over there. Called my wife right before and was just like, hey, I'm doing this podcast, you know, for the next hour, 2 hours. If you don't hear from me, that's what I'm doing. And then the phone, the phone is a blessing and a curse in the same sentence. It
can be a lot.
Because it's like, you know, to the point where I realized I was like, yo, I'm too attached to this thing.
Yeah.
Like, if I get free, I'm like, first thing I'm doing, like, I started realizing, like, I go to my phone, boom, I'm like indirectly going to Instagram. Just boom, boom, boom.
Default. Yeah.
Just default. Boom, boom, boom. Like, before I even check emails, boom, boom, like, I'm just like, yo, and I'm getting stuck, and I'm like, I'm too worried about caring about people's lives.
Wow.
It doesn't benefit me.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to be up to date, and like I don't have to be up to date.
Yeah, because there's something that's like, you love them, so you want to keep up with them, but in terms of just always keeping tabs on them, it could fall into that like trap of comparison.
But there's also too, I follow a bunch of people I don't know. I just know, you know what I mean? I just know them, of them on Instagram. They don't benefit anything in my life.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, Lord's like, you're giving things too much time. And it's like, I had to start looking at my like day, like, okay, how much time am I giving to this? How much time am I giving my wife? How much time I'm giving to my daughter? And then started like breaking it down and then like having my cutoff with certain things. Like, oh, yo, like, you know, me and Hulvey, like 3-hour time difference. So like I'll wake up early for certain things, but then I get to a certain point, like, yo, I'm off the grid for a little bit. And I have to set those boundaries. Like for our anniversary, we're gonna go to Florida, and like I know when I'm in Florida, I gotta answer certain things, but overall, I'm like, all little stuff don't hit me about.
Yeah.
So then, how do you go about finding that balance? Because you talked about Montel and Hulvey, and you mentioned I think one more
ISLY.
Yeah. How do you find that balance? You're married, you have a daughter, you're trying to balance all these different things.
Yeah.
Your relationship with God. How do you balance all these things?
The beautiful thing is like we have Jesus, so it's like him leading our steps. He's gonna help me balance it. He helps me balance it. There's times where I'm like, I got all these things on the list, I gotta do it, and the Lord's like, no, let's knock out these 3 things first.
Yeah.
These other ones can wait a little bit.
Yeah.
So I kind of go like, all right, Lord, here's everything, and He's like, okay, here's some other stuff you forgot about, and He's like, let's do these things first. So it's like, it's an oxymoron where it's like, we read things in the Bible and just like, okay, yeah, that's easier said than done. But it's when we're really walking with the Lord, and we allow Him to lead, He's gonna take a lot of that burden off our shoulders.
Yeah, and I've even seen it from being in a new position at work, and we've talked about me stepping on, being in college, pastoring out the church where I'm at, and having so many different responsibilities now, where I'm trying to figure out how do I manage my time, for myself with the Lord, time with people, time with friends, and it's so just hearing that brings about a good something good for me to take away. Like Jesus is able to lead you in the midst of all these different things.
Oh yes,
it was being and having this panel. This super long table. Every single time I see the thumbnail for that, I'm always like, man, this was...
We take that whole picture up.
Man, it took a while to kind of get that one set up. But we just had such great time with everybody at AXL and such great conversations, I feel like.
And we brought them up so much before and especially since.
And after, yeah.
And so, I mean, it was only fitting for us to include kind of a clip from this conversation in there, just about creativity, inviting God into that. So, yeah, here's a little moment from that conversation.
For those of us that might not understand, here's my 2 questions, so I guess you guys can kind of split it however you want. Is everybody a creative? 1. And number 2, you guys keep saying kingdom, kingdom, kingdom. What does that really mean for those of us that might not understand that?
That's good. That's so good.
Is everyone a creative? I would say...
In general, or like in our community?
In general.
Okay.
Speak. Go do your thing.
Sorry.
I felt it. I felt it.
Yes. Yes. In the way that we know creative, like right now, like how words can like adapt to culture or whatnot. But like we use creative, and when we say that, we think the artsy person with the maybe the feather in their hair and the is like I don't know. I'm trying to get real dramatic.
It's like a brown feather with a white tip.
That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? It's hanging. You know what I mean? That's coming back in style. That's why I wanted to say it.
That means she has one, people.
No, but literally, we think of this. I think we get so trapped in this idea of what a creative is, but like honestly, a creative, like you can be in business and creative because you have to create business plans. You can be a scientist and creative because you have to create formula. You're always creating, like you're always creating. So yes, to answer that question, yes.
If I can follow up with that, I would say if you are tapped, if you are tapped into the Spirit of God, there's creativity in you because He is the Spirit of creativity.
Yes.
And so, yes, it will look different. Kind of what you were saying. If you're in business, if you have family, if you like you're a scientist, if you mow the lawn, like every aspect of what you do. With you being the temple of the living God, you have access to creativity, and I feel like we've been trying to like debunk this image of what creative is.
Yes.
Because people say, oh, I'm not a creative. And one of the things that really broke the mold for me was we have listening parties at AXL. And so we come together once or twice a year. Some people think like, oh, listening parties, album release. No, actually, what it is that we set aside time to hear the Lord for what He wants to say, or how He wants to use our creativity for the year. So we will yield to Him and say, Lord, what do you want to do with my creativity? And then from there, we plan.
Yeah.
From there, you execute, rather than making plans and then going, and then asking Him, can you catch up with me? Mm-hmm. And so there at the AXL listening party, one of the questions was like asking the Lord, like, hey, how do you want to use my creativity this year? And so I remember sitting there and I'm like praying. I'm like, okay, Lord, what are you saying? And I wasn't getting nothing. And so it took 30 minutes in, and then I finally got a word, and he just said business. I was like, what? How am I supposed to do that with business? Literally, it took 2 years for it to finally click. When I was in a meeting with my CFO and with my boss, he started asking me like, "Oh, creatively, what do you think about like putting this here and this?" We're walking through a warehouse, and he's like, we need to figure out structures and creatively figure out structures how we can get shipping to be here. And Jalen, think about the layout. I'm like, whoa, this is how you creatively like infiltrate business, or like this is how I can use this gift that the Lord has put in me. And so it really broke the lid and broke the mold off of my mind to think like, oh Lord, you can literally use me in every avenue of my life. Yeah. And so yeah, that's how I feel like everyone has the potential to pull from creativity with God.
It's good.
And then you said the next question was kingdom. What is kingdom? Kingdom, when we refer to kingdom, I see it as the citizenship of the sons and daughters of God. And so it's like this kingdom in culture. So we have a driver called Kingdom Over Culture. It's like, it's kind of what we stand by. Is like we're sons and daughters of God, and that's our identity, and that's our citizenship. Once we gave our life to Christ and we said, "Yes, Lord, I love you. I will walk this life, and I will die for you every day." You became a kingdom citizenship. You became a kingdom citizen and a child, and so that is what the kingdom. We reference kingdom. It's for God. It has His representatives here on earth, and seeing heaven come through that intimacy in their relationship.
Hey, y'all. Just getting back in. Mic cut off, so continuing. But Angela, you go ahead.
It was my toe, y'all. I apologize. What I was saying was why that's so important is because kingdom is oftentimes going against what culture is doing, you know? And so, like, most times is going against but we have this access to the Father and what like His plans are, and like it just may look different. A lot of times when we come into citizenship or like say that I am a son, I'm a daughter, like God will ask us to do things that like feel uncomfortable or like don't feel like what everyone else is doing, or you know, can catch some slack or whatever it is. And that could be because He's doing both something personally within you and something for the kingdom that we just don't understand, something or that is going to follow that we just don't understand and see yet. So like when earlier we were saying like being like just loving Jesus, but like hearing and obeying God, you know, and that's something that's it is a vantage point. I would say from the perspective of what I know the Lord, it is a vantage point to create and know the Lord, because He will give you insight that the world cannot, you know. So,
can I just add to that too?
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things that I've seen, even like there's this clear distinction to me, even between Christian creative and kingdom creative, and it more so it boils down to motive of the heart. Like God is the only one that really knows what our heart is saying, but is our heart's desire actually to please Him, or are we trying to get a bag? Or are we trying to get on stage? Or are we trying? So it's like, what is your heart posture? If your heart posture is submitted, like if it is birth and intimacy, like Jalen was talking about, to know I'm a son or a daughter, intimacy and identity. And I think that's one of the reasons AXL is so successful. Is those are some of the primary focuses, especially in this season, is if you don't have relationship with the Father where you're hearing and obeying and it doesn't speak to your identity to know, oh, I'm a son and daughter, you're looking for identity still in other places. If you begin to look for identity in other places, then you begin to create for different reasons. And then, again, I always use the word, it sounds harsh, but it is perverted when you are not creating for Creator. Like that, there's a perversion there. And so I think one of the biggest distinctions for kingdom is what is your heart posture, and only you can really answer that question.
Quickly, that reminds me of a teaching that we like started off, which was the Genesis 3 teaching. But basically like this idea of like creating, like after the fall, creativity like was used to cover up Adam and Eve. It wasn't used to serve the Lord. Adam had a job of creating names prior to that, which was from the Lord, for the Lord. but this was something to cover up because of shame. So what you were talking about, like what happens when you are creating outside of God or outside relationship with God, is that you will start creating things to either cover up shame or whatever it is. It'll just be perverted. It will be for a different purpose other than what it was originally intended for. And so that's a big thing that we want to help creatives find that revelation of, so that they can create freely within God and not like limited in chains of like, oh, because I need to be validated, or I need to be seen, or I felt insecure, and whatever the reason may be, you start to create more free with God.
It was really interesting, talking to Hulvey and just the wisdom that he shared.
Such a young guy.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. You must have read my notes. But the wisdom, he shared so much wisdom, and there's so many parts I felt like we could take from his episode to be able to share today.
Real.
Yeah,
for real, bro. And it's just amazing, the purity that he has as well, man. And it's just amazing to see. It's funny that PB manages both him and Montel.
Yeah.
Because it's something that both of them have a unique purity to them that I just have to think his mentorship has had.
Yeah.
In that. But it is interesting, though. It is something that we kind of talked with PB about on a personal note as well. But, in this clip that we wanted to share, just him, in Chris's words, his biggest nugget of the podcast.
Yeah.
Talking about fulfillment and everything along those lines. So it's going to be a good one. So here it is. I'm sure still, to a degree, there was like, should I put in a little bit more work, or is 16 years good enough? And so all people kind of go through that, man.
Can I speak on that real quick?
Bro.
All right. I think this is going to be the biggest nugget of this whole thing that I've probably said, because it's something that me and Miles were talking about, and it's a revelation that I've gotten, I feel like, from him, from myself, in the search of art and what's right and all that. So I feel like deep in everyone's heart, like as an art, like if you're an artist or creative, when you make something, there can be this thing where you want it, you don't realize this when you're doing it, but you want it to fulfill you. And you're trying to make something that can almost get, especially as Christian creatives, who's really trying to like be out there. Like I think of Montel, like me and him can talk about this type of stuff because we're trying to like push it like real far, like creatively. Also, obviously the message, but also like the sonics and what we're doing. And that can be this thing where you want to like almost get it to the same level of God. And obviously he gives it to you, but I had to realize was he showed me was it's him. The whole point was he was meant to feel that. And when I say that, bro, it just relieves so much weight off of me with all the stuff. Because I'm like, bro, it's never done. That's what I'm saying. Like, the art's never done. He's the one that's done the finished work. And he lives in me. And I have all the fulfillment I need from him. And I've found so many times I wanted the art to be something that could, like, fulfill, and it wouldn't. Like, I'd hear something crazy, and there'd still be something off, like that somebody else would make or something. Like, man, what is it? This doesn't do it for me, but this is so good. And it's because he's meant to fill that gap. And I feel like that's something untapped that I don't hear people talk about, but I've realized that, and it helps me, bro, because I'm like, man, I'm gonna go as hard as I can on this, but at the end of the day, bro, like this is it's done. I'm at peace about it. It's done. I'm putting it out. So, yeah, and I feel like God also works in the mistakes. God be working he be working in those moments when your perfection didn't come out in the record. Those moments when I couldn't go back and change that line that I felt like was corny and it's too late and I have to drop it. Why? It's like watch. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, bro.
So we're sitting in Atlanta with Mr. Vance Smith, and he's just nugget after nugget after nugget. And I'm like, man, this dude's going in. And so I'm just listening, enjoying myself. I felt like I was in church. And he's just recapping and talking about Fruit, a series that they had just finished, and we're going back and forth. And for me, it was one of those like memorable moments. I felt like I was just a kid at like a, what do you call it, kind of convention or something like that, just listening to the speaker talk, even though we're having a conversation. So I wanted to include one of these clips from our conversation with Vance. So I hope you enjoy it.
Your purpose can't be separated from your impact. And so, yeah, man. So I feel like it's perfect timing because I've been in a real like existential place and like really thinking about it for my own life as well. And so it's been a great time.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy because if you think about being an American citizen, people work.
Yep.
People are doctors. People play football. They are teachers.
Yeah.
And all those things. They're American citizens, and they also do all those different things. And it's just a natural thing.
Yeah.
Right? So where am I going with this? In the same way, Jesus didn't come preaching some religion to us.
Yeah.
He came speaking about a kingdom.
It's good.
So if you're part of a kingdom,
Yeah.
you just do stuff.
Yeah.
You're a doctor.
Yeah.
You're a lawyer.
Yeah.
You're all these different things, and you're part of a kingdom. So it's
Yeah.
a natural process.
Yeah.
So therefore, you're not separating yourself. It's like, can I be a Christian and be in the business field?
Yeah.
Why is that even a question?
Yeah.
You're
Exactly.
you're a kingdom citizen, so you can do whatever because you're
Yeah.
part of a kingdom. So I definitely think that's something that we a lot of times kind of struggle with. You know,
Yeah.
trying to figure out this purpose word is like, what's my purpose? And I love something that you said about how that impacts people, your purpose, right? It reminds me of this verse in Hebrews. It talks about how there's a land and rain falls upon it. If that land bears fruit in the sense, then it's blessed because people are able to eat of what comes from the land.
Yeah.
But if it bears just thorns and all that other stuff that the Bible words that the Bible uses, then at that point it's not blessed.
Yeah.
Right. So it kind of speaks to what it means for us to bear fruit whenever there is in that aspect, rain coming down into land and us bearing fruit. And like you said, I've yet actually when a tree eats itself, its fruit, then we call it what's the word?
Cannibalism?
I guess. I don't know. But that's not a natural process. It's not a natural process. Like there's some kind of disease or whatever when a tree is eating its own fruit.
Wow.
And so that's like, as you're talking, I'm like, that's not normal for that. So
It
we got to
feeds the environment around it. And fruit feeds and it plants seeds. And so
Hey, we're getting a sermon right now. I'm not even going to church tomorrow anymore. We're getting a sermon right now.
It's been a good time as we've been talking about this because I feel like it's been so applicable to life because that's the first command that's given. And then before Jesus goes to the cross, he's sitting with his disciples and he's giving them all these teachings. And one of them is that I'm the vine, you're the branches, remain in me, and you will bear much fruit. And so Jesus didn't come just to forgive our sins. And then your sins are forgiven and you get a ticket to heaven when you die.
Why is it such a hard thing for people to grasp?
I think it's because...
It almost even... Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It almost even sounds bad when you say that.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean he didn't just forgive our sins? Yeah.
Man, because I think that there have been other philosophies that have crept into how we process Christianity, how a lot of us teach Christianity. And one of them is this concept of it all being about going to heaven when you die. And Jesus came to restore everything to its original intent because the original intent was always perfect. And so he didn't change plans and be like, oh, you guys messed this plan up. Let me go to another plan. It's like, no, let me get things back on track, which was to be fruitful. So that's why this concept is still woven all throughout Scripture. Every message we've been talking about different scriptures about being fruitful because it's all throughout there. And so, but yeah, man, I think that some of us, I think it comes from a lack of biblical literacy. So a lot of us are just taking our understanding of the gospel from the sermons that we hear on Sundays, which in following Jesus and really being a disciple, you're not going to be able to do that super well with just an hour here and an hour here. But without really digesting this for yourself and getting a picture of the whole story, you're not really going to understand everything. And so, but I think that's why so many of us struggle because we're trying to take these like bite-sized clips of what Jesus said in Scripture, which is, somebody expounds on a scripture or two for 45 minutes. And then, we think that that's going to be enough to really build an understanding to go about life with. And we find ourselves lacking because we don't understand the whole story. And so then it's like, all right, well, what is my purpose? Why am I here? I'm hearing this from you know, my favorite influencer, right? I'm hearing this from this podcast. I'm hearing this from my professors. I'm hearing this from my parents. I'm hearing this from the preacher. How does all this come together? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, like all these different voices competing in our heads that are creating, I think, kind of false ideologies more than we realize that end up not working together well. And that's where we become confused. But yeah, I feel like what Jesus actually says to us and what he actually lays out all throughout Scripture is super cohesive and is actually really simple and really clear, but sometimes difficult to accept. Like, your purpose is to glorify God. Most people are like, yeah, but what about this piece though? Like, that's cool, but can I do this though? Yeah. Like, will this still glorify God? Like, and I feel like that's where we end up.
I really wish we had a clip for this because I think the facial expression would have really communicated what happened in that moment for this next clip. I think everybody stopped talking for like a second as they were registering what I had just asked them, because I think after it left my mouth, I was like, oh, did I just ask that? But he looked at me, and then I looked at Chase, and then he smiled, and then we all kind of laughed, and then he gave his response.
He just ran with it.
Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy this one. So this was probably one of my most like random questions I've ever asked. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. So I guess the more serious question is, I guess just, during your 2 years now and kind of just being part of the culture or trying to understand the culture, understanding and all that stuff, what are some of the things that you can kind of see where, we can make an improvement, from an outsider's perspective? Yeah. And then my second, more lighthearted question, kangaroos. It's about the kangaroos. What do you think they say about Australia? If that makes sense.
What do I think?
Like, what have you learned
kangaroo?
from them? Yeah, like, what have you learned from them? I know it's a very dumb question, but there's a point to why I'm asking.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think there's value. They're quite a unique creature.
They are. I don't understand them. They're very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Their preferred mode of travel as well is to hop, to leap, and to bound as well. And for a nation that is so young, we've come a long way. Lots of things that just, it's so funny that I'm philosophizing a kangaroo right now. Like, let me ask. This is so good. That's just to go off of that point of leaps and bounds. I think there's a lot of things that other nations have tried to do that we've implemented and it's worked. And largely it's because we had the benefit of hindsight. And so hindsight of what other people have tried to do and failed. That's what I would say there is of the leap. They're a feisty creature, the kangaroo. Yeah. Don't get kicked by one because they will take you down. They'll send you flying. So, and they have claws and they bite, but that's enough about that.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the people that we've, really had the pleasure of partnering with and also being able to bring on the podcast, Mr. Tyrone Nance. What a guy, It's
you being able to reconnect with them, since college, and everything like that,
being able to serve and all of these different things, and some of the stories that he shared. He had the longest intro that we've had on the podcast. So I'm sitting there. So he goes, "You guys do like intros and stuff like that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll just come up with something." He's like, "No, it's okay. You can just read this." I said, "What?" This man pulled out a laptop and he had like a page that I had to read, and it was
And I'll never forget. Basically, right after that. After the podcast, he was like, "Man, y'all are more professional than Radio Disney."
He did say that. That's definitely on there. So, yeah, man, there's so many, I guess, parts.
Yeah, so many things we discussed with him. But definitely one of the things that stuck out was just really him being able to serve his home community and the people that he used to either do things that ain't so good with, but the Lord being able to redeem those relationships and those streets that he was on. And so here's that moment.
Yeah.
Kind of tell us a little bit about the organization, kind of the heart behind it, and how it all got started up, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm going to do it in like a quick elevator pitch, but the long elevator where it's like a little bit of music, you kind of get lost in it, and then by the time like you really find the rhythm, it's time to get off.
It's key, though. What kind of music? We talking jazz?
Yeah, it got to be jazz. It has to.
I'm good with
I
jazz.
mean, that's the one you kind of get lost in a little bit. I think the other ones is kind of like it creates like this weird kind of anxiety feeling. Like somebody comes on, you're like, do I get to really enjoy this music alone, or is this a shared moment I have to have with you? Okay, I'm getting off now. I feel a little bit agitated, but no, it's the one that you get off and you feel good.
There we go. Bet. All right, so you can continue.
Okay, it's bigger than us, right?
Yeah.
It's an awesome love story between like the people in the community, right? That was birthed out of the ashes of protests, and again, like our world is still completely upside down, and a lot of people were screaming Black Lives Matter in the street, right? But we wanted to transfer that and translate that into saying Black Lives Matter within the community, right? Systemically, and so. It was really cool. What we were able to do was gather about 25 black men from Crenshaw community, whether they either went to the school or they were around the district, and we did local check-ins every week on Zoom. And it was just a safe space where it was just like, hey, how are you doing? How are you processing everything? Hey, like, how's your family holding up? Like, let's have a real conversation. Yeah. And it was something cool that really started to transpire there where people that used to have like facades up or that didn't really get to know each other were just like, yo, like, I can't get it. Like, it's a lot going on. But then there was a lot of moments where it was just a lot of joy, a lot of like, relationships being formed and bond, whether you were hood or you were conservative, whether you had a family or you were out in the streets doing your thing. People were like genuinely concerned with one another. And we did that for about a couple months. And right around the time school was getting ready to start back, we were like, all right, let's take this to the next level. Let's do a back to school drive for our local high school, Crenshaw High School. And so we did a GoFundMe, and within like 72 hours, we raised like $12,000. Wow. Right. And this is so essential because this is at a time right now where they're saying like our nation, 50% of the people are unemployed. And then when you look into the black and brown communities, it's even lower. But people said, you know what, the kids matter so much that we're going to put our money towards this. And so we end up having so much money left over. We end up cutting a check. We got school supplies for all the students. And then we end up cutting a check for $5,000 at Crenshaw High School and then gave them $1,000 in like incentivized gift cards that they can hand out to like the staff, the students, for different purposes. And then we just continue to kept growing. It's bigger than us from there. And within that time span of doing outreach, prepping the materials and passing out the stuff, we had about 200 people volunteer within a week. Wow. And so you had white, you had black, you had guys, but you also had the ladies come out. And at that point, we started to become more holistic in how we started to do outreach, how we started to minister into the community. Mm-hmm. And I mean, from there, like the sky's the limit. We capped off at the end of the year doing a 10,000 toy giveaway for the community. And it's just been an awesome experience that I get to impact with not only where I grew up at, but also with like people that I can call friends and family.
I mean, even just to that point, like Chase said, we went out earlier today. We got to serve with you guys and just see what all of you guys do. And by the way, if you look at my hoodie here, you can see I was blessed with the Crenshaw. What's it say?
Crenshaw Cougars.
Crenshaw Cougars. English is my first language, so I'm still learning how to pronounce certain words. So please give me time with that. But it was just such an awesome opportunity for me to come and to serve. And we also have our boy Yvonne here. We all went to school together. So where does your passion for the community come from, right? Because I mean, like you mentioned, there were some people screaming Black Lives Matter and different things like that. But to actually take the initiative to do something about what was going on in the community, where does that passion for the community come from?
That's an awesome question, and so many things comes from that. But I think like at this point, I would have to like point back to my faith. Like I would have to point back to God. It was just like it's. I feel like it's one of like our duties, right? To justice, to serve, to protect, to feed those that are hungry, to clothe those that don't have clothes, and that's. At this point in my life, that's my natural inclination to give and to serve. And I learned those principles from from my mom, she's very much rooted in like serving the community. I mean, like since I was little, she would always welcome like people from the church, and she would cook food, or it was like she'd have her shop and like someone would be experiencing homelessness, or it'd be like someone that's, you know, a night walker in the community, and they would come into the shop and she would give them clothes free of charge and just minister into them, love on them, and that's the mentality I grew up in. Right. So by the time I got older, I wanted to understand God a little bit for myself, and not just from my parents' perspective. And I really got a genuine understanding of like service learning from like when I went to Oral Roberts University. And a quick story is like I got my BA in public relations. We had a class called a marketing class called I think it was just a marketing class that we marketed for specific like nonprofits that were doing good work in the community. And the one our group got chose with was called Truckers Against Trafficking. And so it's like if you see something on the highways and byways, you say something. And so, you know, being from the hood, being from LA, I took a deep interest into this, you know, because there's a huge like, you know, heavy like prostitution and like pimping like going on like all like the street I grew up off of Western, which is like my mom's thrift shop is off of. And I remember diving into this class and I'm just like, yo, is this stuff really going on at truck stops? And everybody in my group like, yeah, Ty, because I'm not from the Midwest or anything. And they're like, no, yeah, like there's a lot going on like with sex trafficking. I'm like, no way. And I remember being honestly, true story, I remember being at a party one night, right? I'm at a party and I'm just chilling with everybody and I'm just like, wait, I live next to a truck stop. Hey guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah. And I literally drove to the truck stop and I waited all night. I didn't see nobody. So the next day I'm getting ready for class and I'm walking to class and I was just like, and I stay like right behind Walmart too. And I'm walking to class and I'm saying, wait, maybe they do it during the daytime. Maybe I'm not figuring out something. So I literally went during the daytime and I just stood there. And I was really just focused on like, at this point, like saving and serving. And I remember my teacher came and knocked on my door because it's been about 3 days I missed class, right? And she's like, hey, Ty, what's going on? And I was like, none, you know, I just like found like there's a truck stop next to me and I'm just trying to figure out like how I can like help and serve. And she's like, and this is so special about ORU and how like a lot of what I do is so connected to like that place. But rather than the teacher, you know, criticize me for not going to class, she says, so why are you not going? And I was just like, because like this truck stop is right here and the work I'm doing, I got to be here. I got to serve and protect. It's like, you know what? That's amazing. Like, that's your passion. Continue to keep going down that path. He was like, but number two, like, you're a black dude in Tulsa, like, you're not Superman. Like, let's like lay off that a little bit. But what I did was I came home and I took that same energy and I started interviewing like true story. I started interviewing like local prostitutes, local pimps and say, hey, like, why are you doing this? And I started connecting the correlation between like the mindsets, right? Of like having like this victim mentality and like just diving deep. And like, this is someone who's like 20, 21. And I would go talk to my friends about this and they would say, Ty, you're weird. Like, let's go talk about girls. Let's go talk about turning up. Like, you over here talking about like, what are you doing, bro? Yeah. And I admit, like, I got into this awkward space, but I love my church community, right? Where the elders said, you know what, Tyrone, I got somewhere you can put that passion. Let's go to Skid Row. And literally my first day on Skid Row, I'm like thinking I'm about to be like the best speaker. I'm like, I graduated from Oral Roberts University, the most prestigious Christian university on this planet. I'm going to get up there on this mic and I'm going to let people know how they can be saved. I'm going to let them know that they can walk out of here and Skid Row does not stop them. I got up there with so much pride. And I get up there and there's about 300 people in this room. And I look out and I just start crying. One word didn't come out. I just started crying like, I'm sorry, guys. I got up here and I thought like I was going to say something, but I don't know you guys. I don't know what's going on in your shoes. I can't, who am I? But what I can say is I love you and I care about you and I'm here for you. And literally right next to me, as soon as I got off stage, there was this young high school group that was doing a cultural immersion in Skid Row. And their teacher came up to me and said, hey, can you talk to our group of students and can you show them around? That very moment was literally a divine intervention and connection because that's how I got into doing the work I did on Skid Row for 5 years as a volunteer manager. So everything really kind of came like full circle.
Right.
Yeah.
like the whole time during this podcast, I was really just thinking about like, okay, how do you avoid taking in all these kids because of the industry that she was working in, Alaina worked in, and I was just waiting for the moment to be able to ask, and I was able to ask, and we were able to get that question, answered, and so I'm glad you guys are able to listen to this next clip, and I hope you enjoy it. So, because I thought it was quite interesting. So, yeah, we love the kids.
So I'm just reading the script here that I get paid to read.
Yeah,
as Josue always says.
I do say that. Yeah.
So Josue, I might be stealing your question. If I am, don't hit me upside the head. So, direct quote: how do you avoid not wanting to adopt all those cute kids that you come across? Like how do you have the self-control?
That is a great question. I wonder who wrote that.
Yeah.
I mean, I just have to remember that what my position is and what my role is in this child's life. I mean, I can't save every child there is. There are thousands and thousands of children alone in Texas that are in foster care. It's like I have to think about what do they need and can I meet those needs? No, realistically, I'm young and I'm single and I'm not financially stable and I'm not, don't even have my life together, let alone that's why I'm not, married and have kids right now. So it's just one of those, I will figure out what my role is, and that's my job as a family service worker, and I can help pave the way for, foster parents or whoever wants to be their forever home or be that person for them. But I just have to remember what my role is in their life, and knowing that, it's the same way. I don't like to compare children with dogs. I don't know why I just thought of that. Wow. Sorry, but wow.
We started off so well.
I know.
Now we're just going another direction.
Are you gonna go to the shelter and go pick up 1,000 dogs? No. Same way. I mean, children are thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean, they're a lot of money. They take a lot of care. They are human beings. Can you logistically take care of one? That's something that you have to think about. I don't know. But for me, I just know that I know what I can do to be a part of it. But I can't also just go and take kids from, people's homes.
Yeah, that's not right.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I will say this is one of my favorite moments for sure of the podcast. And I wish that we had video for it.
Yeah, me too.
Because this is one of only the 3 times that Josue has cried on the podcast.
The 3.
Yet we don't have video evidence for this.
Yeah, I don't remember the other 2, but I could.
You're suppressing them?
I just don't remember the other 2 times when this happened.
It's okay. We could talk about it after.
Okay.
I won't air you out.
Okay, we'll play the clip.
But no, Mo's story, being able to him talk about everything that he's been through, everything that he's seen was tough yet inspiring at the same time.
Unique. Very unique. So
here's a little bit of it.
I could tell you lots of stories, so I'll try to make it a little bit lighter and tell you some positive, really fun things.
Nice.
I remember one story was this is probably 4 or 5 weeks after the earthquake in Haiti in 2010. My pastor from the church that I go to had come down with a group of 4 other folks, and we're helping out at a clinic down there. And so anyway, there's a bunch of different people that were coming down to help with the earthquake and the carnage after the earthquake, and to help people rebuild. And so best way to describe it, I was giving them a tour of, hey, here's what's happened. And so I took them through downtown, had my driver, we're all on this Land Cruiser driving through downtown Port-au-Prince. And if you've seen any pictures, or I don't know if there's any on my website, but if you've seen any pictures that, the presidential palace had fallen down, people were living in tents in the middle of the street, people were defecating, showering. It was really primal and kind of dark in some ways. And probably one of the greatest leadership lessons, and this guy, his name's Todd Wagner, one of the greatest leaders I've ever met. He said, stop the car. We're driving. I'm like, man, Todd, this is not a good place to get. He's a big guy, but I'm like, this is not a good place to get out of the car. You're white, nobody white out here. And it's starting to get, it's starting to be around dusk. And I remember this story because it's ingrained in my mind now. He saw 2 kids jumping rope in the middle of all this chaos. I mean, literally, I'm not kidding. There's somebody defecating over here on this side of the street. somebody else taking a bucket shower, just completely naked. And then there's these two kids in the street, and they're just, playing jump rope, or third kid that's jumping in the middle. And he just walked up and started jumping with these kids. And then we had a crowd gather of a couple hundred people. They're curious about what's going on. Who's this big white guy, 6'3", 6'4", jumping rope? And I'm thinking this is going to be bad.
Yeah. And
it turned into this moment of joy and celebration and humanity. We're by the end of it, we're all jumping rope together. Everybody's laughing. And it was like, all was right. We ended up having ice cream with everybody out in the street. It was just this weird moment of, you had all this death and dark, and I've been there for, 2-3 weeks at this point. So I'm dirty, I'm nasty. And I probably just needed to see some light. I needed to experience that. Even though I knew the Lord was with me in that moment, I got to see a great picture of the gospel in a small act and relating to people on a. I said I was going to be light, and I ended up crying almost again. Just ready to write, man. It was somebody was going to do it. But it was really beautiful seeing God move through Todd in that way and prompting him to just jump out of the car.
It was crazy because I keep hearing you talk about how you felt. I feel like on our earlier podcast, it was something that we really highlighted a lot. That feeling called to something, I've noticed in my own life when I feel called, to something, it's usually when I'm actually doing something. So, for example, whenever we came to China, right? Whenever my friend was like, "Hey, you should come to China and do, what I was doing," I got to. I was the speaker for the youth at the conference that the church was holding. I didn't have this moment where I felt called, where angels came, where the Lord was like, "Go to China." I didn't have that. I was just like, "Oh man, it's an awesome opportunity," and I went, and things were orchestrated, and I went. It wasn't until I was on the trip that there was a confirmation that I was supposed to be there. You know what I'm saying? And
absolutely.
so for me, I've kind of have seen it that way, and to this present day where I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. So every year at the beginning of the year, I always ask God for a word, right? And so the word that I got this week was like the knowledge of God, right? Growing in knowledge of God and understanding who He is. And in light of everything that has happened in 2020, you definitely get to know God more, right?
Yeah.
To losing my job, to just everything else that's kind of presently going on. It's really a place where I'm like, similar to you, I'm like, because before it was when I was working at the job, it was always stable. You can expect a paycheck just every week. And then now, I'm working at the church. I'm not full-time yet. I'm also doing Uber. I'm doing all these different things, and having to depend on God for things that used to just come every week, so it's like a moment of faith, these moments of faith where I'm like, I'm coming out of this. I have to come out of this like knowing Him more, because it's the year has stretched me, right? So as I'm listening to your stories, I'm like, man, this year has really stretched me in my faith. I'm thankful for it, right? And just relating to some of your experiences where it's like, I gotta trust God because I have one pair of clothes that I'm wearing right now, and this is all I have for a week. And yeah, you still hear Him say, "I got you." And in this day number 3, you're like, "When do you have me, God?" Right? So constantly going through those kinds of emotions. But like the verse you mentioned, Lamentation, we come to a place where we know that He's faithful, right? And that only comes through trials. And I love that. I mean, this is not even a question, but I'm just talking at this point. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. But I love the fact that this is the first podcast where I ever felt like crying. I was about to shed a tear, and then you laughed, and it went away. So thank you for that. But I don't know. I just felt like everything you were sharing really just, I don't know if it was because a lot of the places you were, for me, is back home. I don't know if I relate to it from that aspect or just from being a child, in Congo and, seeing certain things, or even now, relating to it from that aspect. But I really related to just everything you were saying, for some reason, some of the situations, some of the moments you captured and all these different things really just spoke to me. And I'm sitting here like, like, man, this is the first podcast where I feel like I've had these emotions, and I'm not a emotional kind of guy, but here I am talking about my emotions, right?
Yeah.
This is like the first podcast where I sat back like, yo, this is different. Yeah. So this is one of those times where we got a podcast before the podcast.
Amen.
And by that, I mean he spoke to us for about an hour and 30 minutes about a certain subject that we're not going to bring up. And then we had a podcast. So it was a very great conversation.
And even this was the longest podcast we've had to date.
Yeah.
It was like close to 2.5 hours.
It was.
But at the same point, that didn't even come close to exhausting the wisdom that Reward has.
That was,
and that's why he's become an older brother to us, and we love him so much.
Yeah.
And so here's him talking a little bit about the culture of the kingdom of God and some other things along those lines.
You were speaking about, being a kingdom man.
Yeah.
So give us kingdom understanding of the climate of America right now.
Got you.
We're speaking about whether that's police brutality, whether that's the murder of George Floyd, whether that's this side or the other side, this political affiliation, and that political affiliation. Church, what is our...
What is our response to this?
Response to all of this.
What should it look like? What does the Bible say?
Yeah, I love that, man. But first of all, right, so that the Bible talks about this, it says, can two walk together unless they're agreed, right? And when we talk about walking, I found this out when I got married. It's like, you might think, hey, we're both walking there, but there's a lot of nuance to walking with someone. First of all, you have to decide on a general direction, right? Where are we going? And then a destination. First of all, a destination, then a direction, right? And then a route, right? And then you have to kind of decide, okay, which route are we taking? Are we taking 635 or we're taking 75? Then after that, if you're walking with someone, there's pace, right? I have longer legs than my wife. So whenever we walk together, I have to alter my pace in order to keep in cadence with her specifically. And all that to say, I feel like the philosophical wisdom behind that scripture is the fact that until you can establish a solid baseline of what you're talking about in everything, then you'll spend the rest of the conversation talking about, no, that's not what I meant. Why? Because your concept of what we're talking about and my concept of what I'm talking about are mismatched, and therefore we have misconceptions, right?
Yeah.
But so before I even jump into the kingdom perspective of what I'm talking about, I want to make sure that we're on the same page as to what kingdom is specifically, right?
Yeah.
So it says Christ came preaching the gospel of the kingdom. Right. Now, the word gospel there is it's very peculiar because gospel was a political term for the good news of something. For example, I was looking at my phone and I noticed that the president just announced a second stimulus check. Come on, somebody. Real talk, bro. And he said, and apparently he said, it is going to be super generous. I was like, come on. You know what I'm saying? It's like, let's talk. But that in itself was the good news of the stimulus package. So it was the gospel of the stimulus package, right? Yeah. The gospel explains what it's about. And so when Caesar would talk about something about a foreign or domestic policy and the emissary came to deliver that, he would come and say, I am carrying the gospel of this specifically. So Jesus, it never just talks about the gospel in general. It says he came to preach the gospel of the kingdom. And what is the kingdom? The kingdom is heaven's constitution superimposed on earth's jurisdiction, right? That means we live on this earth, but like ambassadors, right? We now subscribe to a higher medium of laws, right? Loftier values. It's like we have an alternate perspective. It's like our hopes and our dreams and our citizenry and everything is counter to what this world is, right? And if you took it, that's the first thing. And number two, the gospel in itself, or good news, which is what the gospel means, is always subjective, right? If I'm starving and like my boy did, and you bring some Whataburger, right? That is gospel to me. If you're not hungry, that's not gospel to you. If you're thirsty and I give you water, right? The good news is that you were. And if you think about it, when Jesus comes and he talks about the good news specifically, he says, right, in Isaiah and even in the New Testament, he says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to preach the good news. And then he goes into what the good news is, right? Recovery of sight to the blind, right? Coming out of prison to the prisoners. And then he goes on to say, and to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. And so the gospel, which was this spiritual thing of the kingdom, touched people's socio-political standing. The acceptable year of the Lord there was Jubilee. And what was Jubilee? It meant all the slaves got their property back. Every slave was set free to go back. And it's like, so it was a social renaissance that happened every 50 years.
Yeah.
And so he was coming and going, oh my gosh, he has come to restore everything to Israel. And Israel was not looking for a spiritual Messiah. They were looking for a political Messiah because they were a theocracy. You see what I'm talking about? So when you talk about kingdom, it touches everything from politics, it touches everything from our sociology, it touches everything to our belief systems, to our family values and everything. So when he gave me this representation of the kingdom and that we are kingdom citizens and we're entitled to kingdom benefits, changed everything from how I look at healing to how I look at provision to how I look at all these things.
I think this was one of those, we had a lot of very funny, like awkward moments that it just went very well. We didn't really need to translate. It just happened. There was a lot of back and forth that was going on.
It's just organic.
Yeah.
Whenever you're three brothers just hanging out, I mean, granted, he is basically your little brother.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Whenever it's just three brothers hanging out, it's fun. And so anytime we're around Ronaldo, whether we got the mics on or not, it's going to be a fun time with a whole bunch of dry humor.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of dry humor. So if you guys like that, we hope that these next clips gives you some of that, and maybe you learn from it, maybe not. Who knows? So hope you enjoy it.
And so I was wondering, like, would there be any benefit to adopting some aspects of camp, like group devotionals or things like that, consistently each day? Or is it just something where it's like, nah, this is something that's just for like a season every year to kind of go away and then come back into everyday life?
Okay, so that's a great question. But specifically this summer, there is a huge emphasis on like a question like that. There's a lot of people. We had a lot of conversations about that, and like we really, I think our directors did a great job of pressing in on us the fact that this can't be just a summer thing. Like having time with the Lord, spending time in community. That's not just a summer thing like that. Like living out being a Christian, like it has to be an everyday thing. It has to be a daily practice. And so with that, like what we do at camp, I think almost anything besides like maybe the activities, like you can do all this stuff at home. Like we always say, like there's nothing special about camp except for the God that exists there, and that's it. Like everything else you can do at home. And you should do at home. Like we have a group message of like 15 or 20 guys now. Like every single morning, we just send in like either a voice message or like just some scripture that we've been learning daily, because that's what we did at camp. It's just we spent time together in the Word. And so for us, like we didn't want to lose that practice, because I know a lot of the guys are younger in college and like they haven't found their community yet or whatever it may be, and they're just like, man, like I need some people that like just to keep me accountable in the Word. And accountability can just be anywhere. It can be through the phone if you're not physically there, but and like something small like that, I feel like we should really be able to continue on outside of the camp. And then even the devotional times as well. Like, man, like why would you not spend time with the Lord outside of camp? Like just because it's there, like just because you're at camp doesn't mean you have to stop when you leave. Like I think that should be a daily thing. And that should be a daily practice to just want to spend time with him and want to spend time getting to know him and letting him get to know you as well. Like letting one of our directors, he always says, like, man, don't read the Word just to read it, but let the Word read you and let it really refine your everyday life. So you can see exactly what's going on there, and you're just like, man, like my life doesn't look like that. Let me fix some things. It's like it's really reading into me. It's really pressing into me.
I was just about to call you Spider-Man. It feels like you're Spider-Man.
Why were you gonna call him Spider-Man?
Because it's like, oh, he's so young. Just like
I'm very young, man.
Peter Parker's kind of young.
Wait, hold up, but there are a lot of young people though. Why Spider-Man?
Spider-Man's the youngest one in the what's it called? In Marvel, right?
Avengers, yeah.
Yeah.
But also, he's got a lot of responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility.
So Iron Man is his mentor.
So is Wayne Iron Man?
Little Wayne? Oh yeah, Wayne. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is he really his mentor? Are we sure about this now?
He is, man.
We might need to cut this podcast short because The way this is going,
No, man. This is my first time so shy, guys. I'm really sorry.
He's
I'm
really
sorry.
shy, so he's struggling through.
Something where this is small relative to what you have in the future, and therefore God's just making sure that you're faithful with a small amount, so it could be faithful with a lot.
Well, we'll check that with Nessa later. Yeah. She's a Bible scholar, so we'll check that with her later to see how true that is.
Behind the camera.
Yeah, Nessa behind the camera. Shout out to Nessa, by the way. Yeah.
Check out episode
30.
I'm pretty sure episode 30. Yeah.
Yeah.
She was on early, right?
Yeah, she was on really early.
Yeah.
Quarantine days.
Yeah, she's one of our favorite guests.
Really?
And the number one supporter of the Perspectives podcast.
Can I be number 2?
Yeah, you can.
I gotta be number 2, man.
Yeah. We got room.
Oh man.
So
y'all got room at the top for me.
Yeah.
So that's just like been my thing every day. Just wake up and be like, oh, the devil lost again.
Luanda?
Yeah, Luanda.
Luanda?
Yeah,
y'all got cities in Angola?
Oh man, the way we got cities for days. Oh, we got cities for days, man.
I thought it was just like a rainforest.
The cafe.
That's not it.
Oh, man.
How many of them quarter crocodiles y'all got?
Not the crocodiles. Oh man, we were wrestling lions since I was a youth, man.
Oh no, good buddy. That's wild.
Yeah,
sure.
and we know you like to dance. So
Oh yeah, man.
as was evident at Vodaman's party on Friday.
No, I'm really shy, really shy.
Yeah, that was low key a movie.
Oh man!
Whenever Nick brought out that whistle, I was like,
some dude had a whistle, bro.
Yeah, there was a whistle in that mug.
I thought it was an ATL for real.
I was freaking out.
They played. What would they played? They played "Wipe Me Down." He started just blowing the. I
was like, I've never been to a club before. Is this how it feels?
I never been there before either, man. Oh man!
The only club I've been to, Sam's Club. This is about it. Play
Yeah, bro. I be at Sam's Club in church, and that's it.
Yeah, that's me too.
Yeah, man.
Me too. Yeah.
So one of the people that Josue has introduced me to over the past, or I should say this was both you and Alex, Mr. Alex Lee, introduced us to over the last couple years, is the boy Street Hymns. We can't drop his government on here.
No, we almost did. Yeah, that was not good.
Smack us upside the head.
Yeah.
But still with that, he's one of the most gracious people that we've ever met, one of the most intentional people we've ever met. Very good game host as well. You and him share that in common.
Yes, but I think I'm better. But whatever.
Just don't take it personally.
Yeah, well.
But no. So this conversation we got to have with him was one of definitely the best at the start of year 2. Yeah. And so here's a little taste of it.
Definitely gotta say that. I'm pretty sure we haven't talked any topics we're supposed to.
Hey man,
other than introduction,
we right there. Loved it. Honestly,
that was
loved
great.
It.
That was great.
So kind of going back to it. Battle rap.
Yeah.
Indeed. When did you get into that? What the heck is battle rap like? And what has God done in your relationship with Him through that?
Just wait, did you come to a battle?
Huh?
Did you actually come to one? Or
Not yet.
You missed
not
it.
yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Yeah. So I got into battle rap because I was curious and I knew I was going to. So it was years ago. I was working on my project. It might have been my Look Both Ways project, which came out in 2011.
Okay.
And in the midst of me working on that project, I was at Dylan Chase's house. Great servant of the Lord, one of my favorite father figures. That's a role model for sure. Love everything he does. Love how he loves his family. Love how he loves his church, his community, everything. And so I was over his house. He's real welcoming when it comes to having people over and recording. He's just once you experience his household, and I love that about him. And then while I was with him, I was like, man, I think I'm a battle rap. He was like, what's that look like? I said, I have no idea. I didn't. I just knew I was going to do it. And so that was 6 years before I even stepped in the ring. And so when it came to the opportunity and the opportunity presented itself in Dallas, I tried out for the league and I ended up doing that Sparrow battle that you talked about.
Yeah.
But the step that I took forth was off of a trailblazer. His name is the Saga. Saga is also a Christian hip hop, you know what I'm saying, battler. And so when I saw Saga doing it, he battled a dude named Black Mugga on what was called a PG, the Proving Grounds. It's like when you the battle you take before you get to the next level on a big platform, right? And so he's battling that dude on the PG, and I'm like, wait, this is a Christian rapper. He's going in. And I'm like, whew. And so I was like, man, this is what it looks like. And so I was inspired. Off that inspiration, I felt called in that moment to finally take the steps towards it. And I'm taking the steps, and, from there, the rest is history, man. Just end up seeing a lot of favor and all that, man. So it was just dope, being able to to represent Christ, but also exemplify, you know, what it means that to really be a part of the hip hop culture. You know, love bars, love lyricism, love metaphors, love performance, all that, you know, and just exemplify, you know, God conquering. That's what I feel like. That's what battle rap does. And so it's an intense culture, man. It's an intense culture. Everyone always tells me, man, I could never battle rap. I say, don't do it then. like you just snitched on yourself. If I ever see you in the ring, I'm like, nope, get him out of here. Because, you know, people gonna talk about, you know, people rarely spare any words, you know, if they don't respect you. And sometimes they will respect you, but they'll, you know, when you get in the ring, it's just like, you know, anything, all's fair. So they'll mention dead family members. They'll mention, you know, doing things to your mother. They'll mention doing things to your sister. They'll mention doing things to the church members, whatever it may be, you know, whatever gets them the edge. And so for me, knowing the intensity behind the culture and also understanding the culture, I'm able to filter things, you know. So one of the things I say is you should never judge a culture from the outside. If you're not willing to be a part of it, just don't speak on it, you know, because at the end of the day, people seen what I was doing. And when I first started battling, I'm talking about like battling, you know what I'm saying, and having people show up and having people, you know, people go post me afterwards like, yo, this Christian dude. I had people DMing me. I had people, yo, this is not of the Lord. Yo, this is sinful. How can you be in a place where there's a stripper pole behind you? Yo, they're drinking, they're smoking, I'm like, wow. Did y'all not forget there was a character named Jesus in the Bible?
Yep.
It's like, I'm pretty sure he did. But
went to some pretty rough places.
Yeah, friend of sinners, man. So like we hear about being a friend of sinners, but we gotta actually be willing to be that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think believers got too many believing friends. You know, so it's time to be the ek in ecclesia. But so in the midst of all that, I think that battle rap has been something that has taught me the continued importance in how you present yourself and what you do behind closed doors, and understanding that people are always watching, understanding that people are always needing, you know. And it's crazy because the times when I was reached out to pray, the times that I was reached out to give to somebody, the times I was reached out to serve somebody, the times, it was probably my most sinful times. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, dag, yo, Lord, you want me to go all out for like, you know what I'm saying? People, I don't feel the energy. I don't feel the high. I don't feel the moment of people praising and worshiping while I'm on stage and seeing what I'm doing. And I'm not feeling I don't feel like I'm spirit filled at this moment, because you meet me at my lowest and it's like, yeah, I need to use you real quick because this person needs a word. I'm like, dang, that's crazy. But if Elijah, the Lord's prophet, can be fed from the mouth of a sparrow, you know what I'm saying, or the mouth of a raven, you know, if he can get fed morsels from the mouth of a raven, then God can use us. You know what I'm saying? That's either voluntary or involuntary. You know, prefer the voluntary. And so it's been a humbling experience, man. It's humbling, if anything. Yeah. And so for me, as the years progressed, you know, it became about performance. It became about, you know, being the best. But now I'm in a place, I'm just like, Lord, like, if I lost every battle from here on out, but somebody was intrigued enough to hit me up and say, man, I really do want a Bible study more, I'm winning.
You're good.
I'm good. Like I truly am in that place, man. Because I never really desired to, like, you know what I'm saying, be the top battler. I always just desired to be one of the top writers in battle rap. You know, so even my aspirations have a cap off, you know what I'm saying, to the average person. It's like, oh, well, you'll never be number one battler in the world. I never really care. My favorite rapper is Lupe Fiasco. So you kind of gauge where, you know what I'm saying, my mind mentally works. So I'm like, I just want to be a writer. So as I just started gauging things and taking a step back and thinking, all right, in the midst of everything that's happened, you know, what have we gained, you know, in the aspect of souls and the aspect of the kingdom, like what work has been done. And man, there's fruit. There's fruit. But in the midst of the fruit, you always feel like you can do more. You know? And so for me, I think the public downside of battle rap, this is what I'll say. The public downside of battle rap is because it's such a culture that is vulgar, it's such a culture that we're almost invited to their environment. And so the things that they record, the interviews, the people that you see, the highlights of battle rap, you search battle rap, it's gonna be something vulgar. And it's like, you know, then you look at us and it's like, where do y'all fit in again?
Yeah.
And so in the midst of all that, the last thing I want to do is, oh, y'all don't understand. So-and-so that got the verified check was hitting me up last night talking about he wanted to commit suicide. This person hit me up the other night talking about, man, like I fell away from the faith, but y'all have encouraged me. This person hit me up and said, man, like I want to go and encourage the youth like you're doing. So I joined my church. And this person, we don't want to do that for the gold star. So people don't really get to see that, because for us, it's the moment we start highlighting our spiritual trophies within this culture, they start to feel like a project. And the moment they start feeling like a project, it becomes disingenuous. And so for us, it's just like, we're content knowing that the Lord's satisfied with the work, even if man isn't. You know, so that was a tough place to be at.
So during quarantine, we're trying to figure out like what to do, you know, what to talk about, and figure out different people to talk about. We had a conversation with Wild, and I was like, oh, my friend Maria, she's also in Norway, in Europe, and this was during quarantine when everything was crazy at the height of quarantine, and we're hearing all these stats and everything was going on. We got to have this great conversation with Maria. She gave us an update on like what was going on in Europe, in different countries, where she was, what they're able to do, what they weren't able to do. So I hope you guys are able to kind of go back in memory lane with us with this next clip with Maria. So hope you enjoyed.
So kind of shifting gears a little bit, kind of talking about how this time is that we're in right now and just everything that's going on. We just wanted to give you an opportunity just to share kind of like what your experience has been with the coronavirus and the quarantine and everything like that, because you've been through a little bit over the last few weeks. And so whatever you'd want to share about that, we'd be happy to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I can just give a short recap of what did happen. So Cyprus, like we've talked about, is a very tiny island, and the healthcare system isn't great compared to like the capacity of a lot of people would get sick. So we had 2 cases, and then they just shut everything down, and even the airport within like very few days after, because the only ones that got corona came from the UK and countries around. So it was like if you want to leave now or stay for I don't know how long. So most of the students within just a couple of days left and went home. So I was originally going, this is like 5-6 weeks ago, and I was originally going to spend my holiday, Easter holiday in Portugal with my boyfriend and his family on a visit. And so my option was like, I go there now and stay there until Easter and come back, or I go home to Norway. But some of my family members are in the risk group, so it's just not safe for me to go home and for them and for me to study and all that. So I ended up going to Portugal and to stay with my boyfriend and his family here. And it was interesting, like even checking in at the airport, they barely checked me in because I wasn't a resident in Portugal. I was like pretty scared of that because I was like, gosh, I'm stuck. And then like coming here, it kind of felt like I was like fleeing the country because it happened so fast. Like I booked a ticket in the morning, left that night, and then like flew through the night. And then I made it here on Monday, like around noon. And on Wednesday, they closed the airports for internationals. So if I had been like 48 hours later, like I wouldn't even have made it. So it's just been a fun, crazy, not so fun, little scary transition. But after I got here, it's been safe. But it's an interesting season where everyone is trying to figure out what's going to happen next and trying to find solutions to something we don't really know. And it's been cool to watch the church too, I think, how they respond, because like everywhere else, I think it's the time for the church to like move the focus back to Jesus and God. And it's not really about the churches and the pastors and the good messages anymore. It's about everyone in their homes, you know, on their knees praying for their countries. And to see that happening has been amazing. I've seen that in Europe. I've seen that now in the Nordic countries. The pastors and the leaders have been getting together to pray, and like that's never happened before. So like the revival, I think, is already started, and it would be really cool to see how people respond to that once this like slows down, because even like non-believers are, you know, starting to seek out. So it's been really cool, fun, and a little scary season as well, I think, of like the unknown.
Yeah, I mean, that's really cool. I mean, wow, that quote you just said, I can't remember, but it hit me. What did you just say? The church is not about.
Well, that's what I just don't think the church is about, you know, the pastors to give messages and going to church on Sundays. Like it really is about the secret place for everyone to seek out the Lord.
No, I mean that's really good. I mean, we're gonna do a hand clap over here. That's really good. You know, I think that was the most we probably talked about Spider-Man on the podcast.
I think that's the only podcast.
It has to be the Spider-Man. Only one. Yeah, but Josiah was just, man, it was great. You know, parting gift for us, I guess you could say. It's probably the best way I could put it.
Being able to put a bow on the year with him.
Yeah.
Before he moved out to Orlando.
Yeah.
Being able to, for the last little bit, I'm sure we'll have him on sometime again in the future. But for the last time while he was living with us, get his perspective on a couple things, especially regarding creativity, regarding the next generation. You know, what do they call it? Gen Z?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, they finished the alphabet, right?
So I don't know where they're going to go from here.
I don't know either, but we hope you guys enjoy some of these next clips.
Gotta go.
Egypt?
You're literally calling this place Egypt?
No, actually, Texas is my most fruitful, prosperous.
I was about to say, don't you put that evil on us, Ricky
also,
Bobby.
I actually felt like this in my spirit too. There's something why I'm going to Florida is because one of my professors, I think I said this in the last podcast, but I'm going to say it again. He said, risk it all. His name is Chris Estrada. Love him. Awesome. I was under his leadership 3 years. Pastor Chris said, risk it all is like one of the greatest advice he could ever give to people. And I was like, what does that mean? And he said, every time you take the risk, like it's worth it. Like when you're not taking a risk, you're dying. And like the Lord's asking you guys to go somewhere. I hope my move is an example to you taking the next step of risking it all. Starting the business, starting that. And even if you risk it all to start your business or something, he might ask you to give it up. So your maturity has to be at the level of like, dang, I risked it all. Now it's just going to be prosperous. No, like he'll risk it all maybe. And then you have to fast for another year, submit it for a year. So he's a guy that's outside of our comprehension. His ways are higher than ours. So maybe totally risk it all, do this, and then submit. Like you have to be willing to mature to be able to do that. Like Abraham risked it all, left his father's land. Then the Lord said, give up your son. Like what? Like, so I'm just saying, like, I just feel also like risk it all in this season too. You're gonna risk it all if it's death, risk it all if it's life or something, but risk it all if your Lord tells you to go. There's something powerful about going. Anyone in the Bible moved geographically to be like the next level of ministry in their life, the next level just for them. Like Abraham did it. The disciples physically got up and left with Jesus. Who else can you think of? Just people got up and moved. And so I believe that. And anyone like personally that I look up to, like in ministry, a lot of those pastors are not the same pastors in the city they grew up in. They moved to another part of the country. So when I was like asked to leave, I was like, yeah, like, thank you, Lord. Like this is your hand saying like, there's something next I have for you. So if the Lord ever asks you to move, do it.
Bet.
It's been an honor, Josue and Chase, and also just I'm praying for perspectives for next year and the Lord's hands-on perspectives. And I just see the Lord going to be speaking to both of y'all very specifically in 2022. I just know that there's going to be like an intentional voice of God on what the next season for perspectives is. I feel like he's going to move his hand and like shift it the way he does. And so it's his. And so I'm excited to have his perspective on it.
Yeah.
Boom, mic drop.
There you go. Good job.
You dropped the
You see
chapstick.
the symbolism there.
I'm part of the,
Yeah.
I'm part of the Avengers now. So
Nah, you are. Nah, I mean, this has been a.
So it's only fitting for us to end this celebration and this best of the first 100 episodes with our most recent episode with the boy Danny Bryan of Circuit Riders, one of the people who we love dearly. So excited for everything that God's going to do in his life.
Yeah.
And it was an honor for us to be able to have this conversation with him.
It really was. And hearing so much, I should say, about Circuit Rider and actually being able to meet Danny in person and just knowing the kind of person that he is and his heart for the Lord and people, man, it was really a great conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. So, yeah, as Chase said, I hope you guys are able to enjoy some of these clips from there. That's not the way to go.
We'll just leave that over there. Yeah.
We'll leave that one. Yeah, go ahead, bro.
So, what would you say is been the things that's impacted you the most in Circuit Riders? Whether it be like various times with the Lord that you've had while you've been with Circuit Riders, and maybe hasn't been like affiliated with like a time that like you were leading a prayer set or something like that, or if it is something with an actual event.
I mean, probably the most impactful thing was the leadership that came from Brian Brent, who is the founder of Circuit Riders. Kind of wild, but he just passed away about 2 months ago. He's like my mentor, spiritual pops, coach, all of the above. And that was a really hard season for us. But the way that I saw Brian Brent empower people is like something I've never seen before. To entrust a whole region to, 18 to 22-year-olds, to equip them with everything that he has in his arsenal, and a little bit about Brian is that he suffered an autoimmune disease that attacked the lungs. So just on a normal basis, he had about a quarter lung capacity when he was speaking, when he was traveling. And so there's so much hardship that he endured and went through and pushed through. But he was the most joyful person you will ever meet, the most empowering person that you would ever meet. He never complained, and he always had a smile on his face. And he led with such radical faith, unction, courage, and boldness. And so it really did trickle down from his leadership, but it really did in the best way possible. In fact, all of us who are part of Circuit Riders to lead out in that same way of empowering young people, empowering people in general, to really saying, like, you have an inheritance in this as well. Like, this is not just for, the few. This is for everyone that wants to see the kingdom expand and go forward. And one of the main things that marks us is we have this word to be like a Barnabas, a brother of encouragement. So, I mean, it's so funny. Even though like our recognition is sort of getting a little bit bigger right now, like we still don't have a building. We live in community houses. So we live, missionary lifestyle in Huntington Beach. I know, like, how can you be a missionary in Huntington Beach, California? But we pack out sometimes 12 to 15 people in a house, lower rent. And we have one office space in Huntington Beach, and that's where we sort of mobilize so much from. But we normally work out of coffee shops and everything like that. But yeah, it's just the whole idea of just seeing a generation equipped and sent has been impactful to see. And I can write a whole book really on just just all the different tours that we've been on, the experience that we had, God really showing up and moving in power. Like the person that he thought was the furthest one away from the gospel, getting reached by the gospel and really radically changing their lives. And the music that's going out. So it's just been a whole long history for me of being impacted every single moment. Every leader that I'm surrounded by, which are some of my best friends in the world, just challenge me and just spur me on every single day to be more in love with Jesus, to be in the Word, to be a man of prayer, to be a leader who leads with just radical humility and servant-heartedness. So that's a lot, but that's still like a small glimpse.
But yeah, so that's kind of the last little bit down memory lane. But before we end, we just want to say thank you so much to all the guests who've been on for these first 100 episodes. We wish we could have included more, as we said at the start, but that would literally be about 50 hours.
It would have.
Long. And so hopefully only a couple hours people will be able to get through that. But yeah, y'all have meant so much to us. Every single conversation has turned us into the people that we're becoming. And what God's doing, and it's played a very, very big part in the journey that God's put us on, and for perspectives, and being able to be just an avenue to get the charity out there, to get everything that we're doing out there, and for us to learn as we're leading this. Yeah, man. And so it was a fun time.
It was, and I was able to learn a lot, as Chase said. It was able to shape us as people. You know, we've taken a lot from these experiences. If anything, we've been able to grow and take so much from the people that we've had on the podcast. I would say, 100 episodes, so many different conversations, so many different countries and peoples and thoughts and ideas that came through. We were able to sit through and learn through so much. So we thank you guys again for, coming on and speaking to us, just these two regular dudes. And also just thank you guys for listening, to us once again, these two regular dudes. We hope to put out more great content and being able to bring on more people for us all to enjoy.
Hey, it's okay. It couldn't be a reminiscing podcast
without me messing up. Yeah, English isn't my first language, so you guys already know this by now.
Exactly. Y'all know the trademark.
Yeah, so we need to put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Actually,
we'll need to cut that.
Yeah, we'll cut that part out. Yeah.
And then I guess as well, shout out to our videographers.
Yes.
To Thomas.
Yes.
Ronaldo.
Yes.
And then we brought in the relievers for a couple of them.
Yes.
Joseph and Unessa.
Alex, Grayson.
Yes. So yeah, thank y'all boys for that. Really means a lot. And yeah, so I think with having that said, that'll be a wrap for us in this episode. So thank y'all so much for tuning in. Hope y'all enjoyed it. All of our information for perspectives will be in the description below. If you'd like to support us, the outreaches and the podcast and everything that we're doing, it's going to be a good next 100 episodes, bro.
It is.
So it'll be fun. So until next time, much love. God bless.